Welcome to Hacking Business Technology, the show where I have to go from one computer to the next and run right after I hit start broadcast. Today it's a competition about who can get the best video picture on the podcast.
Mine's pretty good, so good luck with that.
I think Mark wins.
I'm still trying.
So we're missing Matt Hooper today because he actually is prioritizing making sales over this podcast, which makes sense if you think about it.
Whatever. So, but no, Google is enhancing my photo on video, and I'm not sure why. It just decided to do that on its own. So, someone's got my back.
I think they like you better than us.
Maybe.
Or maybe you're just on a faster connection. We should share connection data. How fast is your connection?
I don't know.
I'm on Charter. It's never fast.
I'm on Comcast. I pay for 13. I get like 50 on average. Max. And Eddie doesn't like that. So anyway, whatever. This is the slowest start to the podcast ever, so we're going to speed it up, all right? Is that all right?
Let's go.
Oh, geez. So did you guys see this stuff on Twitter about ITSMFest? I guess there was an event over, it must have been in London or something.
ITSMFest?
That's
what I saw as a hashtag. Patrick Bolger was there, and I'm sure that Stephen Mann.
I don't know if it was in London, though. I think it was somewhere else. Anyways, but yes, I saw there was a whole bunch of Twitter chatter on the hashtag.
Did you listen to it? I mean, apparently not, because this is sounding like a surprise to y'all.
I didn't listen in, no, but I did creep tweets.
Yeah, Mark Smalley was there. Stephen Mann gave a presentation. You know, I saw a couple tweets from it, and I started to craft witty responses to all of them. And every single time I ended up deleting them because I just found that it just wasn't relevant. The IT industry just isn't relevant. So I just couldn't respond to them.
Yeah, I mean, and you totally jinxed Mark, by the way, because I think he's having network issues now. But I would agree. Forget ITSM Fest. I think a lot of the Twitter chatter, a lot of these conferences, does it feel like everyone's just recycling the same content and we're recycling the same tweets and there's just nothing, it's just not engaging as it was or used to be?
It's like an echo chamber.
I constantly wonder if it's me or if it's really happening. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess. Maybe, yeah, I guess that's a good point. Maybe we're in a different spot. But in any case, okay, so one of the tweets specifically, so I can give a specific example. Someone was quoting Stephen Mann about BYOD and how it's not about mobile devices, it's about IT not being aligned with the business. And, you know, my response started out as, is this a surprise? Is BYOD still a surprise to someone? Is there someone who hasn't figured this out or put a policy in place around it already? And
that's precisely my point. I mean, or maybe we're just, well, there's a few things that make my brain going right now aside from the head cold I have. But there's the notion of something like BYOD and why we're still talking about it and that it still seems to be so new and something that people haven't heard of. But there's also that notion of, well, you know, if we look at organizations like ITSMF, maybe that's why we still have the same content in all of these conferences, because people still don't get the message. We haven't, you know, the 2, 5, 10, 20 times over is needed much, much more. Or maybe we've just run out of ways to reach a wider audience. I don't know.
Or are people not actually providing solutions and reaching the solutions to these problems? Like, are there people that are still struggling with BYOD? I don't know the answer. I'd like to know, though.
I'm sure there are, but it's just a waste of time at conferences or even at, you know, LIGs that we have to get the last 25 or 40% of people, you know? I mean, I don't know. The ideas should get out there and hit the ones who are ready, and then the rest can be taken care of by consultants.
Yeah. I think this is kind of one of the reasons that I really liked TFT is because it was meant to be a lot of practitioners and it was practical. I'd really like I'd really like content to be crowdsourced, like a voting structure for this sort of thing, so that stop answering the BYOD, or if there is one BYOD, let the people who are really curious about that and still struggling with that find the one session that they think would be valuable. And maybe there's a better way to vet out speakers. We need to actually ask them, what is the carrot that you're dangling in front of people's...
That's kind of interesting, though. Like, if you had a conference with different tracks, you could have cutting-edge track, kind of the standard track, and the we're really behind track.
I really like that. And it would be interesting to see how many people just flow into that we're really behind track. Or the vice versa, because they think they're ahead, but they're really not.
Right. Why is speed?
Like, how far ahead are you on process or technology adoption or training? Like, make it a matrix so that, if your maturity level is 3.3 or whatever on training, you're pretty good on that, but your technology is at a 1. Well, you're supposed to be sending your engineers, and they should attend these sessions.
No, I really like that, because if I think of knowledge, if I think of ITSMF, Fusion, if I think of even Pink Elephant, all of these conferences have a beginner, intermediate, and expert. And to me, that's not valuable, because even the expert tracks are like, okay, I've been there, done that. So I really like that. It's like, it's actually getting to outcomes, an outcome-driven agenda profile, right?
Yeah, and base it on role or like stakeholder group in the conference. So, there are going to be people that fit into multiple roles, and that's going to be a problem or whatever. But you could actually devise, like, make sure that it's okay. So if I've got a maturity 1, and I want to attend training stuff, and I'm a service desk manager, which session should I go to?
Mm-hmm.
Make it objective based. I
like it.
Okay. That's
I pulled up the feed.
Oh, go ahead.
I pulled up the feed. A simple calculation for your metrics in the slide from KPIs to scores. Oh, didn't we say something about desk KPI discussion?
You have the slide? Can you share it?
Well, I pulled it up on my iPhone because I've got 5 things going on at once.
The same thing is when you look at Bright Talk's emerging trends in ITSM. I mean, more than half those sessions are not emerging at all.
We're so busy delivering our solution that we've forgotten to focus on the business problem. That was from Stephen Mann's session.
True. Who doesn't get distracted? Show a department that doesn't get distracted.
Even the business gets distracted from business.
Or leaders just don't want to lead. They don't want to put objectives out there or goals out there. But there are some cases where that is not true. There are positive leaders out there making change.
We're still talking about breaking down the silos, and DevOps is a reorg. Really, is it? We've talked about silos and breaking them down with every single framework and every single lecture for as long as I've been involved in this space.
It is funny, though, how DevOps is prompting people to reorg. I mean, I see it even in Emory.
The Phoenix project comes up several times in that feed. Optimize for speed, not for IT cost.
What?
Yeah.
Who said that and lives in a capitalist economy?
I don't know. It was Sophie Fallberg was a Twitter account who tweeted this, and she didn't quote from where, but it just says, optimize for speed, not for IT cost. Enterprise IT wants to be unicorns in 2015.
Full vendor. Guaranteed.
We sure do talk about unicorns a lot.
Starts with cost. Financial transparency is where you start everything. That's capitalism, baby. So, speaking of ITSM, sorry, we got to get off this fest thing. Although I do like the Twitter handle, very cool. Does sound a little. Never mind. I'll leave that one. I'll leave that one to the other podcast. So speaking of ITSMF, is anyone up for an election recently? You guys know anyone?
So I have an opportunity to potentially go for president-elect for ITSMF in Atlanta, the Atlanta League. And So I guess that means, you know, you just shadow the president, you hang out, and then next year you become president, that sort of thing. So it was interesting, though, because Roger Williams was kind of up against the same decision recently, and asked a few people, you know, what do you guys think about this? And there was some interesting feedback. I mean, obviously, ITSMF has had its issues. Some financial issues, transparency issues. Right. Right. Also, some harassment issues or, you know, misogyny, homophobia, all these types of things. Again, I think every organization, as well as every industry, has those issues. But
it's people.
It's people. Yes. So there was a lot of talk about, do you want to align yourself with this? Do you want to be part of an organization like that? Is it really overly political? Can you get anything done? All these types of things, right? So I've focused a lot on just this kind of idea. If there's something that perhaps you have an opportunity to be a part of that has a history that's questionable, do you run away from it? Do you accept it? Or do you try to change it? I mean, those are really the only options. I mean, it doesn't do any good just to complain about it, right? So, I don't know. I mean, there is no alternative to ITSMF in ITSM right now.
And they still reach people. They have a reach.
Right. So just because previous or current leaders have brought bad things to the organization or introduced issues or, you know, tainted the organization, I mean, what I'm starting to struggle with is perhaps that's exactly why I should go for this position, right?
Well, I guess I would raise it up one level then and say, what value does ITSMF bring to us?
Right.
Do you believe in its mission, value, and goals? And do they act towards their vision, mission, and goals?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of what it comes down to then, because then it's about, is it a cause that you want to support? Because my assumption, and these are all assumptions, and I hate assumptions for the very reason that that phrase goes through my head every time I hear it. What are you getting out of it? Are you getting cred, like street cred, or are you getting financial cred? Because those are the two things that usually motivate people.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I mean, I've had a pretty good experience so far, just in the local group at least. I mean, there's people to meet, there's some interesting things to see. I mean, but I think we do a better job than most. I mean, it drastically differs based on the local group, right? So, I mean, depending on getting people involved is a goal for me, obviously. Getting people to think about new things and stop asking those old questions. So if I got involved in a more formal way, that's what I'd be focusing on. Getting people involved, getting them to think about new things. That can be achieved, I believe, pretty separate from the national level, although you've got to send your proceeds to the national level. So...
You know, I think it starts from the ground up, right? And so many of us have had reservations about the organization, opinions, feedback, but even fewer of us have actually done something to try and make that happen.
Yeah.
So I feel like, especially because it's this non-for-profit organization and it's not something we all get paid to do, that makes it even that much more important to say if it was seated or grounded upon the right intent and we have the right goals and objectives and we can influence the mission or course correct, and it just may not have been executed, then I don't see why we shouldn't try and, you know, play that game, if you will, right? So how are you going to know whether you were meant to win or lose unless you play the game?
Yeah. I think I've been thinking about Emory itself, Emory University. You know, Emory has a questionable past for sure. Some of the buildings were built by slaves, okay? And yet, today, we do some of the most important work for civil rights and race relations out of it. It's not the leaders that changed. The people did, right. So the leaders went away, you know, new leaders come on. things change, the people change, and they're able to totally turn an organization around. I mean, so, and the same thing with government. I mean, if one particular leader in government is doing bad things, there's almost more of an impetus to become involved.
Yeah, but the difference is that with the government, everyone's kind of screwed, right? We're all in this ship together. With ITSMF, there are other options, a lot of them actually.
Okay, so let's talk about that.
Yeah, so specifically, let me tell you a story about a league, I believe it was in the Southwest, and they didn't like some of the decisions that National was making, and they didn't like sending their profits away, and they didn't like the content that they were getting, and they didn't like the support that they were getting. So they broke off and started their own thing, and they just took as many high-up people as they possibly could get together to form a new local interest group focused on something. You know, they chose technology business management, which is sort of like the AppDeo financial management sort of angle. And it's going really well. And there's no there's an organization, right, because they have to form something. It has to be a .org or a nonprofit or something like that. And then they just have board members, you know, just like the league does.
Yeah.
But they do it themselves as opposed to, and you know, you can get sponsorship. I mean, if you think about it, the only thing that National is giving you and getting in return is those national conferences, and then, you know, the support that the local interest groups get, whether it be trainers or events or, you know, whatever. Here's a website to run everything for you. And I think, like, a lot of that is all commodity now, at this point anyway. Look at this podcast. How easy is it to set up a national event? Pretty easy.
Right. So that's totally true. I mean, I'm getting echo.
I'll put on headphones.
It's easier than ever to set up an independent state, basically. However, then you lose any ability to change the larger organization, right? So I'm not quite sure how ambitious I am to change a larger organization. However, I certainly think that, you know, I don't like complaining about an industry without trying in some way to change it.
Hey, taking off your headphones doesn't mute you.
I need to go blow my nose. I'll be back.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, it always comes down to what's in it for me. I mean, not in this case. I'm sorry, I'm not going to turn this into. I don't have that much of an ego or vanity or whatever you want to say. What is that?
Right.
I don't remember. In any case, it's about what's in it for you. What value are you getting out of it? Or in the case where you're trying to improve an industry, what value is the industry then getting out of that? Because you're approaching it from a straight, like, ethical standpoint. You feel morally obligated to do this because you think that you can make other people's lives better, which is awesome.
Perhaps. It's interesting when you talk about industry. I mean, I've been thinking about that since I saw some comments from others, but I don't particularly believe, based on my experience, that ITSM is comparably worse than other technology industries. I mean, certainly, from my own experience, ITSM is in a better position, ethically or morally, or, you know, in terms of civil rights or anything like that, than, let's say, pure development, programmers, coders, that particular industry. Certainly better than the gaming industry. The gaming industry is the most revolting, chauvinistic industry I've seen around, except maybe sports. So, I mean, it's not like you can just say the industry's bad. You just can't. Like you said, it's people.
Yeah. Yep. I mean that's, yeah.
I certainly don't. Yeah, I certainly don't see people in ITSM making death or rape threats to other women in the industry. You know, I mean, but you see that all the time in the gaming industry and other things.
Well, and it's You know, it's about visibility and media and how people handle it. And I think, yeah, it's all about figuring out where the best value is. And I love your focus on local, because that's something that I believe in as a consumer, not only as a professional, but as a consumer. I'm sorry, I had to mute you. So I like the local, and I think you're right, you could have the most impact at a local level. It's all about figuring out what you can do then for those people. So just talking to people, figuring out what they want, talking to the other board members, and seeing if they think that culturally you'd be a good fit. You know, do phone interviews with them to make sure that your expectations for being able to change the local league or even the national league are supported by your peers, I guess.
Well, another thing I have to think about is code of conduct. I need to make sure I don't have any constraints there. I need to be able to talk open and freely about vendors and anything else I have an opinion on without any constraints. So.
Yeah, you're on a podcast.
I mean, that would be reason enough to turn it down right there if they expected me to have certain behavioral constraints. So.
Oh, they just want to put a collar around you and record everything you say from now on and sell it. Okay, well, I think we've resolved that. You're either going to form a new coalition or you're going to take the job. One of the two. Stay tuned next week to Hacking Business Technology to find out how this saga will end. Have a good week, everybody.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Farah, if you want to sign off, you're going to have to unmute yourself.
I did unmute my. Did I not unmute
There
myself?
you go.
There we go. Have a good one, everyone.
You too.